like the Flashpoint, where it starts, one of the key matrix lines that will help shatter this status centralized system.
It is time for round 3, the actual Tuesday, May 15th, 2012 edition of Flashpoint Radio. Thank you for joining me. I am Jay-Z, your host, as always, and we are going to get right into the news and look at what is happening around this country and world. First, touching on an article, a story that we dealt with last week from Yahoo News via Reuters. Minnesota police accused of giving out pot to watch behavior. This is just an example, another example of a win for alternative media. Infowars.com, Occupy Minnesota, and a number of other alternative news sites reported on the fact that Minnesota State Police were picking Occupy protesters up, youths off of the quad there, or the public property there, taking them to another place, getting them high, and watching them. This turns out it's part of a drug recognition program that is being run in 48 states, so chances are it's in your state as well. And, well, since it was reported on alternative news, a week and a half later, it decides to run into the mainstream trickle-down media. And now, since it's getting some actual press, maybe something will actually be done about it. Maybe the public in those 48 states will ask their police department if their tax dollars are going to buy drugs and to get people high, so police can watch them. Oh yes, that's right, because we need to have a war on a plant that grows in the ground, and we need to pay the police to watch people get high so they can know how to spot people to get high, so they can arrest them, put them in jail, that's owned by private companies, and then the whole thing can start over again, because it's a cyclical war on drugs that is run by our government to support private financial institutions. Remember, they ship the drugs in, they ship the guns out, then your sons or daughters use the drugs that they shipped in, they get sent to jail or juvenile detention, and private institutions make money, make profits off it. Sounds like a good deal to me. I wish I were in the prison industrial complex. But read the story below. As with all the stories linked in the description below, it's a good sign. It's a very good sign when mainstream trickle-down media starts covering stories that were covered weeks ago by the alternative press. A, it means you can get your news first from watching shows like Flashpoint Radio, the Alex Jones Radio Show, or finding your own source of alternative information. Because guess what? We have our finger on the pulse of the world, not the mainstream media, because they have to wait till their controllers tell them what to print and what to publish. Moving right along, though, from the Electronic Frontier Foundation, which is a big organization defending your rights in the digital world, DHS, Department of Homeland Security, which sounds an awful lot like a Nazi organization, DHS considers collecting DNA from kids. DEA and U.S. Marshals already do. Documents just released by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement in response to one of EFF's Freedom of Information Act. Of course, again, the government or the public forced to sue the government for information that would incriminate the government in doing things that we do not approve of. How much do you think they're actually doing that you would not approve of? I bet it's a lot. Shows that the DHS is considering collecting DNA from kids ages 14 and up, and is exploring expanding its regulations to allow collection from kids younger than that. Of course, it's to cut down on illegal immigration, to prevent crime, and to track kids when they go missing. Yes, that's always the excuse, to keep you safe. But if parents were doing their jobs, raising their kids correctly, morally, and knowing where their kids were, guess what? The government wouldn't need to know where your child is. Guess what? The government's never going to know where my child is, because the government's never going to put my child in a government database, if I have anything to say about it. But who knows? I might not have anything to say, because the unelected bureaucrats, the executive branch of the government, the Department of Justice, is trampling all over your rights of privacy, and you don't care, because you think some guy in a turban is going to explode a bomb at your public library, or at your subway station, or at your grocery store, or at your mall, or at the airport. So you'll just give up your rights because, well, we're safer because of it. When in actuality, you have no proof that you're safer. The only proof you have that you're safer is that the government told you you're safer. Well, the government is full of certifiable liars. They've been caught lying over and over and over. But you continue to believe them over and over and over. What's the definition of insane or crazy? Repeating the same function and expecting a different result. Well, that's what you get when you listen to that thing that's behind me day in and day out, and you sit your kids in front of it day in and day out. From Infowars.com, moving right along, talking surveillance cameras coming to U.S. streets. Talking surveillance cameras that bark orders at passerbys and can also record conversations are heading for U.S. streets, with manufacturer Illuminating Concepts announcing the progress of its IntelliStreet system. So yes, once again, your tax dollars funding the security complex in this country to protect you from a false threat created by our government is now going to install street lights and smart lamps in your city that A, can speak to you, and B, record you. Maybe someone out there should read 1984 and see what's in it. And maybe you would see some similarities, and it might become scary, and these things might actually bring you back to reality. Well, most of you never even live in reality, but maybe they'll open your eyes to what is really happening. Because when the same things happen, the same result happens. Just because they're in a different uniform, just because that's fiction, this is real life, doesn't mean the outcome's going to be any different. Reality is stranger than fiction. It's not just a term, it's true. But, moving right along, they would never do this to our veterans, would they? From the Washington Times, injured vet's guns stolen by the District of Columbia. An injured vet was driving from New Jersey to South Carolina with guns that he had stored at his parents' home while he was on active duty. And he stopped at Walter Reed Medical Center for some treatment and then was pulled over by D.C. police. They searched his car. He relented because A, he had his guns in a locked case in the back of his car, separate from his ammunition, which is what you're supposed to do, which is what the law states you must do. So he felt he had no reason to hide anything. But when they found it, they arrested him, saying that he was in possession of illegal firearms in the District of Columbia. One of the best parts about this little piece from the Washington Times is this nugget. The officers then told Mr. Kim he was in violation for the carrying firearms outside the home in his vehicle in the district. That's horrible writing. Horrible reporting. You should be ashamed of yourself. Because I did not read that wrong. That's how it was written. But the next line, the nation's capital does not acknowledge the right to bear arms, so there are no carry rights. So yes, the District of Columbia, where our government resides, where our representatives reside, where the people who make our laws reside, where we are supposed to look to for our laws, do not even follow the Bill of Rights. They do not even acknowledge the right to bear arms. Oh, I love it. I love it. Do you really think you're free? You're only free if you exercise those rights. Remember, if you do not exercise your rights, the government can take them, and you won't even know any different. But what this show was started for, what I like Flashpoint Radio to be, is something that you can look to notice the trends and to see the things that might affect your life eventually. And, well, something may have just happened. From the Telegraph, Merkel tells Greece to back cuts or face Euro exit. Turns out Greece may be looking at an exit from the European Union. And the stock market today felt the brunt of that news. The S&P is at a 3-month low, and it turns out from CNBC News that stocks faded in the final hour of trading Tuesday to finish lower following news that Greek depositors withdrew 700 million euros from the nation's banking system. That, my friends, is a bank run. And what one bank run does in one country usually trickles down to the next faltering country. It could be Spain, it could be Portugal, it could be Germany, it could be Great Britain, it could be France, but eventually it will come to Canada and the United States. Eventually, these issues will come to your family and to your life. So yes, this is a flashpoint to watch. If there is trouble in the euro, if the euro decides to allow Greece to remove itself, then expect more countries to ask to be let out of the European Union. And well, that will cause turmoil in global markets, will eventually come to the United States. That's what they want. They want economic disturbances. They want a crash of the economic system because that will cause real riots. And then they can put in their own agent provocateurs to instigate more riots. And then the police have to come crack down on the actual rioters while the agent provocateurs get away scot-free. And then the police state comes in, takes your guns away, and drags away all political dissidents to the re-education camps that we talked about over the last 2 weeks here on Flashpoint Radio. Don't you just love this country? We are so free. I don't know what to do with all of my freedom. But you can be just as free. I'm joking. You can be just as free as I am if you realize that you are not a slave to death. If you grab hold of everlasting life, you'll realize that death holds no power over you. And if you're not a slave to death, then you are truly free, because death is not something that scares you. Because death is not something that scares me. Because I know where I'm going when I die. Do you? Jay-Z signing off for round 3 of a marathon of Flashpoint Radio. Thank you for viewing. Check me again tomorrow. God bless, and keep your eyes to the sky.
Well, if you're looking for trouble, I'm the